Welcome back to Building SY Mistress, everybody. In this episode, I'm going to give a post-it notes update. The work is all about what I think are these fantastic COACHROOF rails, and they are a real game changer, as well as give some really exciting news. So first things first, I do need to update this post-it notes list because there's been 3 other things that I can now tick off and remove, and they are the V-berth cabinets. I actually had in mind a slightly different design. For those that remember, I was going to have just lockers all the way down where the cabinets that I've put in now are. Obviously, I didn't do that, and thank goodness for that. I think what I've ended up with is a lot better, but because of that, I won't be needing to build what I had in mind before, so that can now be crossed off. The other one is finishing the fridge freezer. As you might remember, I've actually got this portable fridge freezer in place, and so that built-in unit I won't be building in the near future, certainly not before we move out of this yard. So that, as far as I'm concerned, can be taken off of this list. And then the other one, as you saw in the last episode, I actually got the engine controls put in place, so that can also be crossed off. And just to make a comment about that, I did have a couple of people make comments about the fact that the gearbox cable is not connected to the gearbox or engine itself, and so with the engine vibration, perhaps that's going to cause a problem for the cable. To explain, my first preference was to mount it off the gearbox, but there really is not an easy way or simple way to do that, which is why I did what I did. I'm going to see how it goes over time, of course, but I can say from where the saddle clamp secures that in place, there's a lot of flexibility in the end of that cable. I think it's going to be okay, but let's give it some time, and I'll be keeping my eye on that to see if there's any problems. If there is, I'll need to come up with an alternative, but until then, I've got something that works and that's certainly sturdy. So now a little reward, removing these notes, which I always enjoy. 1, 2, 3. So why I say with these what I'm calling COACHROOF rails are an absolute game changer is because these are what's been preventing me from continuing on installing the lining. I needed to solve this, and it really wasn't the easiest thing to settle on a design, to make them, and to install them properly. It was not an easy install, I can say, because there's this complex curve following the COACHROOF where it meets the side decks. So yeah, there was a lot of effort getting these installed, but the end result, I must say, is actually better than I envisaged. I am so happy with these, and the thing is, they have multiple purposes actually. The first of which is, yes, to give a finishing trim piece where the COACHROOF sides and the side decks meet. Also, as is or was very common with boats, this is an excellent handhold running the full length of the cabin area. So this is just solid. I actually think you could lift the boat up with these. So certainly, as far as a secure handhold on both sides of the boat, this is excellent. And then the last thing is, it's just an aesthetic piece. I think it's come up rather nice. And so the last rather big and great news is I do have the new launch date. Yay! Which is the middle of October. Here we are, right at the beginning of August, and so mid-October we're heading to a boatyard where she'll be launched. Like before, I'm going to be having about a week in the yard just to give me time to do the anti-fouling and whatever last jobs remain before she goes to the water. This is all going to be at a different boatyard, which really suits my needs and my budget a whole lot better. I'll be letting you know a few more details about that as the months roll on from here on in. But in the meantime, enjoy this episode. And as always, if you enjoy this episode, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And as I always say, leave a comment because I do enjoy reading what you've got to say. Well, this is another noteworthy moment to mention. Since the now failed launch date, I've been doing a heck of a lot of little things, many of which you can't even really see. A lot of it is detailed work. It's all hidden, but this moment represents the moment that I'm actually going to finally start attacking the finished trim on the inside of the coach house sides and the decks. And so these pieces here, which I machined up yesterday to get the rough shape, are what's going to be the trim pieces that actually go at the bottom of the coach roof sides. And I've made them an L shape so that they also double up as a handhold whenever you're going down either side of the boat. Should you need to, you'll be able to actually grab onto those so that they give you a secure handhold. So what I'm going to do now is get the router onto these, take off those sharp corners, putting round over profiles on those, obviously to sort of dress it up a bit, but also make it more user friendly. After that, I'm going to get them epoxy coated. And because there needs to be a slight curve to these once they're fitted, after I've given them 2 coats of epoxy, what I will do is just put a bit of weight on the middle in the direction that they need to be curved. Just let them sit for a bit, but I figure while they're being stored, I may as well do that just so that if they are going to move, they'll move in the right direction. Okay, finally getting back to covering up this insulation, putting the lining in. There is a lot involved in this, and it's great that I've made up already what I'm calling the coach roof finish rails. I don't know if there's a proper shipwright name for these. If anybody knows, please let me know. But yeah, these lovely pieces that I've now machined up and all epoxied, ready for installation. But first of all, what I do need to do, of course, is put in the battens in order to fix them to. Now they need to be much stronger than what I've used for the other parts of this paneling. That's just a pine composite. Great that it has that coating on it, so that should last over time. But I really do need something much stronger in order to fit these rails, because in addition to being somewhat of a finish dress piece, they also provide some utility in the form of a handhold. And so obviously, once they're installed, they need to stay there. If you're rocking and rolling in the boat and grab a hold of that and it lets go, obviously that's a bit of a fail. So I've made up, as you've seen, all of these bits of rosewood, and they are to be fitted as such. And so once that's in place, once those rails are screwed and glued into those, they certainly won't go anywhere. There's a bit of work to get these fitted, involving getting this foam cleaned up, making the space so that they fit properly, and then afterwards just giving those beams a bit of a sand to clean off the foam, roughen up that epoxy undercoat, and then I'll be screwing and using the good Fixtech 15 to bond them in place. Oh my. Really? Oh, that is so good. That is a complex cut on the end here, and I've nailed it. Second cut only. Oh, that looks so good. Man, that is so solid, and I think looks great. Can't wait to get the whole lot on. Oh man, well, I wasn't actually going to film this. I'm fitting this bit of trim here, and I've only just actually had it in place for the first time. I wasn't going to film it, but I am, because I am so surprised that I've been able to pull this off. This involves complex cuts on each end. This is a mitre cut, and it's compound, as I say, because of the angle. The same with that end. And so I've cut that end first, leaving this one very, very nervously. I have been really nervous about getting this cut right. I did get that end right first. I was able to actually hold that on the bulkhead and get that right, but getting this in place involves it being able to be fitted and all of those compound angles being right. So I'm going to redo that now and show you. It is too long, and that was deliberate, probably only by about 2 millimeters, which will be easy now that I know that I've got that angle right to just give this end another trim. The settings are still in place on the table saw. So have a look at this. Right, so that end needs to come up a little bit. There's a little gap on the top here. By the time that end comes up, that'll close that gap, and that should be absolutely about as close to spot on as you could make it. Take two. I'm going to call that spot on. It was an involved process getting all of these coach roof rails to fit nicely, but with the dry fitting all done, plus epoxy coating everything, in the next episode, they all get epoxy glued and screwed in place for good. Till then.